Welcome everyone to Nerd of the Rings. We've got a Nerd Moot on our hands today. As my live chat folks like to call it, the Nerd Moot. Maybe this will be a weekly thing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Maybe we'll do this on the weekly Nerd Moot and have special guests. Like today, we have Yoystan from Men of the West. Yoystan, thanks for joining me again, man.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Always a pleasure to talk to you and the Nerd Moot community.
Well, I do want to, I saw some chat happening before we got rolling, so I wanted to address something real quick. So Adam asks, will you be posting some of your traditional lore videos once Rings of Power is out, or you'll only do breakdowns? I will 100% still be doing traditional lore videos. Those will still be Saturdays at noon is the plan. So I don't intend to change that whatsoever, no matter what shows or movies may happen to come out. So all the breakdowns and stuff for Rings of Power, that's all going to be in addition to the traditional lore video. So no worries there. They're not going anywhere. So Yoystan, and also shout out to Jamie, new member here on YouTube. Welcome to the crowd. Be sure to join the Discord, Jamie. So the big news today, we have a lot of news just in the last week. So Yoystan, the big news today is the Embracer Group just entered into an agreement to acquire the IP rights to The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And as we dive deeper into this, what we find out is what they've basically done is they've bought Middle-earth Enterprises, which will keep its same infrastructure from the sounds of it. So the same people will still be heading it up and everything. But they're now under new ownership and a much bigger company.
That's so fascinating. I didn't expect this with the projects we already had. With Rings of Power, with War of the Rohirrim, the Gollum game, and Return to Moria, amongst others. I know which we'll get into later, but Wētā also announced their game prior to this, or maybe it's more combined than it seems. But all these projects that are already announced, and then you have someone or a company that buys the enterprise at large, that buys the IP rights. And so that makes me curious about the future of these other prior projects. Like, I'm sure we'll still see everything released that I mentioned before, but do you think this would affect future seasons of the Amazon show at all? Do you think that the rights will change in that way? Okay.
No, I don't. I think, and this is, it's very interesting because Amazon, from everything we've heard, Amazon purchased the TV rights, which is why theirs is a series versus a film. But it does say in here that, so I had a couple points I wanted to highlight. Key upcoming work set in Middle-earth in which Middle-earth Enterprises has financial interests include the much heralded Amazon series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, which will premiere on September 2nd. So I wasn't aware that, Middle-earth Enterprises had any part in that. I thought that was something directly with the estate, but maybe that's just
interesting.
A lack of my own understanding. I was joking with In Deep Geek on Twitter that pretty much every meme where you see someone doing like the crazy calculus with all the symbols and letters, it's like all those memes rolled into one is trying to understand the right situation of Middle-earth stuff.
It really is
a mess.
It's a huge mess. Well, and something that's been interesting, something that I've been following is that for a couple months now, somebody, one of my patrons in my Discord server told me about this, that the Lord of the Rings Online, this group was pretty much rebuilding the base vanilla game from scratch and rebuilt the code, rebuilt the world and everything. It was about to go into alpha or beta testing like this month. And my friend Royan and I, we were wondering, okay, well, is Standing Stone Games the people who actually have the Middle-earth Enterprise rights? Are they on board with this or not? Turns out that this independent group did not have the rights to do it, but it wasn't the Lord of the Rings Online that came after them. It was Middle-earth Enterprises that said, hey, it's not that
do that.
Yeah, it's not that Standing Stone said, hey, that's our game. I mean, they said that a little bit, but it was more so you don't have the Tolkien rights for it. So that's really interesting. They're very hawkish in terms of what they're like looking out for. One, and we mentioned this in our combined server, Matt, with the other creators. It's like I don't, or maybe I mentioned this in my server. I don't know exactly how we, even as YouTubers, have the rights to talk about everything we talk about.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I don't know how they don't come after us more, and I don't know if I'll ever know, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, you mentioned what was the game you mentioned? Oh, the Moria game.
Yeah.
So in the list, they included some other things like War of the Rohirrim and the mobile game Heroes of Middle Earth, which I'm kind of meh on mobile games, but you know,
me too. Yep.
yeah. But then like they didn't even list the Moria game or the Gollum game. Like there's even more coming out. And then like you mentioned the Wētā one, like you know, as this, you know, news story kind of implies, like we could be on the verge of a flood potentially of Middle Earth property, or not properties, but projects, you know, between games, films, and what have you. It also says, you know, it's interesting. This particular part here that was quoted a lot on Twitter said other opportunities include exploring additional movies based on iconic characters such as Gandalf, Aragorn, Gollum, Galadriel, Éowyn, and other characters from literary works of J.R.R. Tolkien, and continue to provide new opportunities for fans to explore this fictive world through merchandising and other experiences. Now, the part that jumped out to me, I mean, obviously a lot of people have been focusing on the films, you know, of iconic characters, which I don't know. I actually, you know, no matter how the Rings of Power turns out, I like that it's an ensemble and it's not just like pick a character and do a movie on them kind of thing.
Yeah,
like
me too.
You know, like X-Men tried to do with like Wolverine and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That yielded some good results and some really, really bad results.
For sure.
But the thing that stuck out here to me is, you know, obviously merchandising there. I heard your audible reaction there, but then other experiences makes me think, oh, and Tolkien Answers here has exactly what I was thinking about. Lord of the Rings theme park. Could you imagine?
That would be awesome. I mean, there would have to be a barrel ride, of course, you know, riding down the river in a big barrel. That would be awesome.
And a flight of the Flight of the Eagles or Flight of Gwaihir or something.
That would be sweet. Yeah.
You know, one of those where your legs dangle.
Oh yeah. No, like that would be awesome. I'm definitely a little more hesitant on the almost mercantilism of the franchise. I don't want it to be over saturated in a way that, you know, I know I've like heard the story from my dad of how upsetting it kind of was to see, you know, Lord of the Rings on gambling machines or things like that. You know, it's like,
yeah, that was a big story back in the day.
It was, yeah. And so hopefully we don't see too much more of that where it kind of like cheapens the franchise, because you know,
I feel like, you know, with theme parks, it could be done really well. Like I think it was Nerd Cookies here in the chat said like Harry Potter at Universal. Which I don't know if you've ever been there, but I went there last year with my family, and it's amazing. And
that's great.
The famous story there is that, you know, obviously J.K. Rowling had choices of theme parks and stuff to do, and you know, part of the reason she didn't go with Disney was because they wouldn't guarantee that they wouldn't. She wanted it to be standalone. Like she didn't want.
Oh, interesting.
Like essentially, I think the quote going around was she didn't want like Mickey Mouse dressed up like Harry Potter wandering around. You know, she wanted it to be its own experience. And I think if they did something like that, where it was well done, then it could be really cool. And I'd be totally down for it, because I thought that's a fantastic theme park that they've got there.
Yeah. Well, and like you were saying, I mean, a theme park would be awesome, especially if it's more standalone and treated with that. But you like you were saying, with the potential films on Gandalf and Aragorn and Éowyn, and Well, I was thinking about it today. It's like, well, Matt and I, we create videos that are character histories. So how well would this translate to a film? And I think for maybe a
Yeah.
couple of characters like Aragorn or Gandalf, that might actually translate pretty well, this character-driven narrative. But characters like Eowyn, whose story mostly takes place in The Lord of the Rings, and she doesn't have that much before or after, I don't know how amazing that would be, how much they could do with it and stay true to the themes and the lore. Also, so what are your feelings on almost a Tolkienian cinematic universe?
Yeah, I hate that phrasing, the
Oh yeah,
cinematic universe phrasing. Like, I have like a little bit of a gag reflex when someone says that. I'm gonna throw up a poll. So like while we're chatting about this very topic of which character you want to see a film on.
that'd be
It's interesting they use Eowyn because it's like her whole story is within Lord of the Rings. Like, I
exactly.
don't know how much, unless you did something in her youth or something.
Yeah, or something like right after Lord of the Rings, where they're settling in Ithilien and Faramir and Eowyn, or I
Yeah.
don't know,
Like,
but yeah,
because like the most, the climax of her story is in Lord of the Rings. So someone said that of Gondor says Yoystan face reveal or everyone unsubscribe from both.
No,
That's harsh.
Yeah, that's
so
a lot
harsh.
of pressure.
Oh my gosh, guys. So yeah, in terms of, so I'm excited at the possibility of more films.
Yeah.
I'm also, I think a lot of people are conveying this right now, in the wake of this news. They've seen what oversaturation can do. I would argue that Star Wars ran into this,
Oh yeah.
where, for every thing you get that, and obviously it's subjective, like who enjoys what, but
Yeah.
personally, I love Mandalorian. I think that's
Yeah.
a really fun show. Love watching it with my kids. And then, but for every one of those, you get like a book of Boba Fett that's like,
Very
like,
mid.
did
Yeah,
we
at
have to
best.
do
Yeah.
this? Like, it didn't really, it wasn't worth it. It felt like it was, to fill a calendar spot kind of thing, rather
Yeah.
than like, this is a story that needs told. And I mean, not getting too into the Star Wars weeds, but like, the Mandalorian is like a Boba Fett show of what Boba Fett, what people
Yeah.
expected of Boba Fett. So like, you've already done it essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. It almost felt like it
Yeah.
was to fill a calendar spot,
Mhm.
because and that's just like the Disney Plus sort of entity. And that's where it's like, I hope Amazon, I know they have Amazon Prime and everything, but I hope
Yeah.
this doesn't become that, because
Yeah.
Mandalorian, I agree, is like the best thing that has come since the Disney Star Wars merger.
Yeah. That and Rogue, I
yeah.
really like Rogue One.
Me
honestly.
too. Me too.
I like it. Yeah. So
Couple things for
yeah,
sure.
there's a couple things that I really enjoy, and then there's a lot that's just kind of like, I could take it or leave it. Maybe if I'm, in a particular mood to watch, some Star
Kenobi
Wars
or
that's not my favorite. Yeah. Oh well, I enjoyed like half of Kenobi.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely. Like, the last episode I really liked. But
I really want to see that fan edit. Someone made a fan edit of like 2.5 hours of Kenobi or something, and I've heard it's really good, and I really want to watch it because I have a feeling it's kind of like the Hobbit movies. Like, you can tell there's enough good bones there to like make
like
something.
A smaller a movie or a couple episodes, but nothing like a 6-7 episode series.
I've always said like people don't make fan edits of garbage, so like the fact that there's so many fan edits of the Hobbit, and that there's a fan edit of Kenobi, and like people like it, it shows that there's some really good stuff to work with there. But yeah, I'm kind of, so all this to say, looping back around here, people bringing up all kinds of fun movie ideas, like Bill the Pony movie.
Yes.
So if we get to the point where we're scraping the bottom of the barrel a bit, like, that would be unfortunate. So yeah, I overall, I'm excited because as a Tolkien fan, it kind of, we've been in this stretch of where it's like we wait 10 years between adaptations, where it was like we got Lord of the Rings, had to wait 10 years for The Hobbit, and then another 10 years later we're
for
getting
Rings of Power.
We're getting Rings of Power and War of the Rohirrim. So this time it's like, hey, there's two things going on. Aren't we being spoiled? You know?
Yeah. I hope we look back in a year and we're like, yeah, we were spoiled versus like, oh, they should have taken another 5 years with these things. Yeah, because it's definitely my worry for me personally. Yeah, like we talked about Star Wars, even Marvel for me, it's just getting too much, and I can tell that not the same amount of effort and love goes into the projects that used to. And for me, Tolkien you have to spend like years on those projects to really make them what they were. I mean, 1997, 98 was when Peter Jackson was really getting started with his projects. And then that went until, 2001, 2002, until the release of Return of the King and the extended editions as well. So it definitely takes time to make something quality. And, I'm seeing people in the comments throwing out like a Turin idea or something like that.
Oh yeah. And that wouldn't be on the table as of yet.
No, as of yet. Yeah. And that's where I would say, like, if they tried to do any sort of cinematic universe or any kind of Middle Earth, they should wait until they have the Silmarillion and until they have the Unfinished Tales, in particular, those two.
Yeah, I don't know what the chances of them waiting are. I have a feeling that
that's the idealist in me,
like
for sure.
This sale went down and they're like ready to hit the ground running. The way I always put it is like, you look at the difference between, so talking about early Marvel, not so much like the Marvel that I personally have kind of lost some interest in because there's just so much of it and it doesn't feel like can't miss anymore. But like early on, Marvel did the right thing. They like built up to like their Avengers and their team ups and stuff. And so, and then on the flip side, like DC, I felt like they tried to run before they could walk, is how I always say it. And so I hope that whatever comes of this, that they walk before they try to run.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Like obviously we know, with Amazon, for instance, they have, all kinds of TV rights. Like they have The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. Like they could have come out and said like, all right, we're doing this show on the Second Age. We're going to do this Aragorn spinoff. We're going to remake The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, like just announcing stuff like crazy. And like, I'm glad that they went one at a time. Yeah. And I hope that's for the better. Like, obviously we'll find out in the future, but
we will. Yeah. It's just
cool. Cool Sean here. Thanks for the super chat. Says, can a chart be made of who owns what and the cost of the rights? i.e. Tolkien Estate owns books, Silmarillion, Salzance owns, Amazon owns, etc. It might look more like a Venn diagram.
Honestly,
I think
that's a good point.
Yeah, it'd be dicey. Like I certainly couldn't make the chart.
No, I was like,
great idea.
I think shout out to like Tolkien lore. I think Joshua would be able to build it. Best,
Yeah, he'd be the most qualified. I feel.
Yeah. Yes. That would be really hard to.
So Yoystan, what knowing? So we've got the rights of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. What would be your dream? Oh, by the way, my poll here, 48% say Aragorn is the one that they would want to see a film on, which I'd be on board with that. Honestly, like that is probably, going back to the rumors before we knew what the Amazon show was going to be, and it was going to be a young Aragorn project.
Yeah.
Like that's a story that has a lot of promise because he does a lot between
he does,
in his early life, you could get into his backstory in his childhood, but then, he's 87 by the time, Lord of the Rings comes around, the War of the Ring. And
he's already the hardiest of living men. Yeah.
Yes. He's gone on adventure. Like it's very, again, like getting into some of the Tolkienness, much like the Second Age, there's parts that are just a note here and there. Like he went on his early adventures with Elrond's twin sons, Elladan and Elrohir.
Yeah.
So like, that's all we know. We don't know what those adventures were. We don't know what they did. We know that he went to Rohan and he fought with Theoden's grandfather. And we know that he went to Gondor, and I've loved the part where he fights against the Corsairs.
Yeah.
As part of Gondor.
Burns their ships.
Yeah. It's like we could have a swashbuckling for lack of a better term, we could have basically a Aragorn versus pirates movie.
That would be so cool.
you
Yeah.
know?
And then he goes into the far east and the deep south, and
yeah, like the guy,
yeah,
had a lot of adventures, and like it could be a good series, or potentially a film. I think a series would lend itself to like those one-off stories really well.
totally. You
But
could
that would
introduce Halbarad and an assortment of other rangers. Absolutely, yeah.
Now we're getting Pirates of the Caribbean references, which I'm totally cool with. That was going through my mind a little bit, honestly. So Yoystan, that being said, what's your dream, project to come from this? Primarily movies, because this sale in particular is movie rights, from my understanding.
I mean, I absolutely love the story told, even though there were definitely some differences in it, but the story told in the Rise of the Witch King Battle for Middle-earth game, which was the Angmar War, and you saw it from the Witch King's point of view, and that was so interesting, so much fun. I think something like that, where you have the main antagonist be the Witch King, the protagonists are Arvedui the Last King, Elrond, Glorfindel, and Eärnur of Gondor. You have those be kind of your main cast.
That's a pretty, like, as far as a cast of characters goes.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty good.
I would absolutely love that, and they have all the rights to it. It's all in the appendices. So
yes, yeah, honestly, and that's one that I think I even posted recently online that is kind of a sleeper potential series that a lot of more casual fans would not know anything about, but could be really awesome.
Yeah, and it would like set so much of the tone for what the North felt like, of what happened with Weathertop and what happened with. Yeah. There would have to probably be a bit of time compression for sure, because it's like a 600-year. I know, just because it's a 600-year long war, but
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I wanted to bring. So we had a super chat here, so we'll jump around a little bit because I was going to bring this up later, but I'll go ahead and bring it up now. Do you like the idea of the Southland / Harad in the upcoming Rings of Power? I'm pessimistic, but actually excited for this. People already naming it Before Door. Yes, I do really like the name Before Door. It's so good.
I think that came from Fellowship of Fans. I don't remember.
I think it was Ken from Fellowship of Fans.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I like one thing that I do like about the Shadow of Mordor games is that they do show that there are civilizations in Nirn and civilizations in Harad and these places, and it makes total sense that. I mean, it's still a volcano, Orodruin, but it makes total sense that at this point in time, it's a fertile land, and that and Sauron coming in. I mean, a
lot of people don't realize there's a sea in Mordor too. We got the Sea of Nurn here. So I brought up so this is the map we're talking about, the Southlands, and I do love like the featurettes. Like I love that there's maps involved, because then I get to like pour over them. So to give you guys a quick rundown here. So where this red arrow is, that's Orodruin, that's Mount Doom. To kind of get our bearings here. This is labeled as Mindoluin because at this time in the show, Minas Tirith would not exist yet. Gondor doesn't exist. So Minas Tirith is right here on kind of the southeast, I guess, corner, this would be, of Mindoluin, which is where Aragorn finds a sapling of the white tree in the books. Down here, it's kind of hard to see, but this is Pelargir. So this is where Aragorn and the Army of the Dead meet the boats of the Corsairs. This is a very, very important port. This is actually a port of the Faithful. So we'll probably see that in the show. Whereas Umbar and south of Umbar, we are told, are ports that are controlled by the King's Men, so like the evil Númenóreans. And then Tir Harad, it's kind of hard to see, but Tir Harad, which is where Arondir, and I kind of blank on the names a little bit. Bronwyn, is that right? I think that's right.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So this is like the land of this the Southlanders, as they're calling them. So I was really surprised because I expected them to be in Harad. You know, with the name Tir Harad, I just expected like, oh, that's in Harad. That makes sense. And then this is Ostirith, which Tirith means guard.
And Ost means tower? Is that right?
Yes.
Tower.
So that's people are guessing that that's the tower that we've seen in the promos. And then this is the lands that's looking over. And we did see some water, and there was a dam, I think, near the tower. Or a bridge. Yeah.
Let's see. It's Citadel, Fortress, or Stronghold is Ost. So, because I was like, wait, Tower of Guard. That's literally Minas Tirith.
Yeah, Minas Tirith is Tower of Guard. Yeah.
So this would be Fortress of Guard or Citadel of Guard.
Something along those lines. But all this to say, basically, you know, things are probably going to go south for the Southlanders in the show.
Absolutely.
Because it is during the Second Age. So people were, you know, I saw people wondering, you know, oh, would, you know, wouldn't this be just a, you know, kind of like the scorched earth place that we find, you know, in the prologue and in Lord of the Rings and everything. But at this point, Sauron hasn't made Mordor as we know it. Like it's in the Second Age where he makes Mordor his stronghold.
Well, and I want to say Frodo and Sam pass quite near there, because if we look at Mindolluin and then across the river, that's where Cirith Ungol would be, and Minas Morgul over there. So just I think they pass just north of there.
Yes.
Because there was one point in the book where Sam had to drink some water in Mordor. I think he had to. So, and then we see that river there. So I wonder how close he was.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
and it's hard to tell, you know, because this map I think is probably a little, maybe, you know, a little different, tilted. Yeah. And then everyone was noticing like this giant tree. Like, which, you know, if you look at some depending on the map that you look at, some of the Middle Earth maps have like a dragon icon or like a sea monster icon. You know, it's not necessarily to scale, but usually on like these landlocked areas, you've got, you know, what is assumed to be to scale. So like these are trees right here. And then we've got this giant one that, like, I don't know. I imagine like a Godzilla ent or something that's wandering around, and they're like, just stay away from there, guys.
Fimberthiel, Treebeard's wife.
Cody, thanks for the super chat. One does not simply make a Lord of the Rings show. The great eye of Amazon is always watching. All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, they've got the rights to it.
They do.
I don't. Nobody's gonna make a show without them having a say in it. But movies, though, that's where this comes in. So
Matt, what would if mine was the Angmar War, what would yours be?
Angmar War is a really good one.
Yeah.
And I kind of forgot about that when I said Aragorn. Because I think the Rise of the Witch King and that whole plot line would be really cool. Man. Yeah, I think I'll stick with the Aragorn since we already covered the Witch King. I think you know, we kind of covered them both, but I think Aragorn and the Angmar War are the two that immediately jump to me.
For me, there's
go ahead.
For me, there's one other, and it's the Kin Strife. It's the Gondorian Civil War.
Yeah.
Eldakar being the protagonist and Castamere being the antagonist. But I was talking to
it doesn't have like the familiarity.
Exactly.
You know, the connections aren't as strong.
Yeah, you know? the only big one would probably be Osgiliath, would be like, oh, this is why it looks like that in Peter Jackson's films. But yeah, no, other than that, it's like Pelargir and Umbar and things that we don't really see that often. But I was talking to earlier this year, talking to some other YouTubers, and one said that the problem with these kinds of films, of the Angmar War, of the Gondorian Civil War, is to them it doesn't feel like Lord of the Rings. It doesn't feel like, from a more general audience point of view, it doesn't feel like the adventure story of multiple races coming together and going somewhere like you have in The Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings, and even parts of the Silmarillion. This would be very, very much men fighting men.
That's true.
Osgiliath. So it's like,
which is kind of, but we're getting that with War of the Rohirrim. It's very much a men against men. Presumably no elves or dwarves or anything are gonna come into play. Maybe orcs, possibly, if they decide to throw orcs in there. But it sure looks like it's gonna be Dunlendings and Haradrim against the Rohirrim.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Like I also kind of look at it like you can't just tell the same story over and over again. You know, like
same.
There's only so many times where all the races can come together to defeat the greatest evil.
Absolutely. Well, that's what makes it special,
Right. And I think, there's like Angmar War, for example, like there's a good story there between, Angmar and, gradually destroying the realm of Arnor, and then, the elves and Gondorians come in to, put him in his place, so to speak. Yeah. And you could really, I don't know, we could totally go down a rabbit hole. We could spend a whole stream talking through making our version of this potential, film. But I think if it was done a certain way, you could kind of see why Angmar is a big deal, and why Smaug's defeat in The Hobbit and Sauron being expelled from Dol Guldur is a big deal, because it takes away
any chance
his
of
power in the north. So I mean,
no,
but that might be too geeky level for the casuals,
I don't
normies,
know. But people really love the Witch King. Absolutely. Like for some people, I know that's more of their favorite antagonist than Saruman or Sauron.
Because he has a physical presence,
Absolutely.
like Sauron's, in the if we're talking Peter Jackson films, he's just a flaming eyeball, and in the books he's just like this ever-present threat, which is great. Like, it works really well, obviously, in the books. But the Witch King, and like the way they did his helm in the books was really cool. His like whole armor suit up scene is
Gandalf's monologuing
it's really good.
It is.
So someone asked about a board game that I was gonna pull up the chat, but I've lost it. So
was it Magic?
No. So it was Journeys in Middle Earth. But I wanted to point out another part of this Embracer Group news acquiring the IP to Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit is that I'll just read off this section. Embracer's operative group, as Asmodee Group, is already one of the most successful licensees of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit through board games and card games, having published over a dozen games with over 100 expansions since the release of the Lord of the Rings board game over 20 years ago, including classics such as the Lord of the Rings card game and the Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth, a fully cooperative app-supported board game set in J.R.R. Tolkien's iconic land of Middle-earth. So if you're familiar with Fantasy Flight, which makes a lot of board and card games, they are a subsidiary of Asmodee, and Asmodee is part of Embracer Group. So it's kind of cool that this company as a whole has a good solid track record. And a lot of people are referencing Journeys in Middle Earth. I'll get rid of the screen here so you can actually see it. So I just got it recently. It's still in the shrink wrap. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. But so if you've seen this game, it probably gets recommended on websites and from your browsing cookies and stuff. If you're searching for Lord of the Rings stuff, that's what happened to me. And then before you know it, I ordered it. Oh, Adam says, I work with Fantasy Flight. I love those
That's
games.
awesome. Yeah, and the art that they make or have commissioned is incredible too. Matt
Oh
and I
my gosh,
use
yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
Fantastic. So yeah, so it's not, you know, a wholly new thing to the company. And the fact that they, you know, essentially own Fantasy Flight, which has done
Yeah.
some really great games. The Lord of the Rings card game, I haven't actually played it. I have a few of the cards because like, I don't know, because I'm a dork and hold on, you know, get cards that I haven't played, I guess. You know, that's what I do. I have shrink wrapped Lord of the Rings games that I'm going to play someday.
Oh yeah. Leaves a lot of future potential fun for sure.
Yeah. And so that being said, you know, we talked a lot about movies, but there's also room for games here.
Yeah. Well, and something that I've seen as well recently, it hasn't been big on the news. I think it's been kind of drowning in the news of other Lord of the Rings things, but I know D&D, I don't know if it's them officially have very soon.
So D&D, well, I believe the One Ring RPG came out with like D&D. So I'm not as familiar with it, but after watching Stranger Things, I really want to play D&D.
Oh,
I feel like I would
fun.
like it.
Yeah, it's a good time.
But yeah, so I think they came out with the rule set that is compatible with D&D.
Yeah, you're right. I think that I know that I've seen that like factored in. I haven't played that version of D&D before, but I just posted this link in the chat. So Screen Rant, you can finally play Lord of the Rings in D&D 5th edition. Fans of the Lord of the Rings can finally experience the lands of Eriador in D&D 5e with the release of the Lord of the Rings role playing.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
It's crazy. Lots of there's so many things. Like I'm like,
many.
They're blending together in my mind because that totally blended in with the One Ring to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if that wasn't enough, just today, like an hour before we started this stream, Magic the Gathering announced, you know, that they are coming out with the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle Earth, and they revealed some of the cards. And again, you spoke about the artwork that is so awesome with the Fantasy Flight games, and here again, and Magali also has done art for some of the Fantasy Flight games, but this is a new piece I haven't seen before. This is obviously Gandalf and the Balrog.
Wow.
Atop Xeraxagil. And then here's a really cool piece of Frodo. Actually, I used part of this as the thumbnail since I knew we were bringing it up today. So this is Frodo with the One Ring. And this was one of the really cool parts of their presentation. So this is a series of 18 of their playing cards that combine to make this collage.
Wow.
Of the Battle of Pelennor Field. So we've got Minas Tirith up here. We've got some Nazgul. We've got the wall back here. Éowyn standing on a rock. I don't know that is, you know, a canon formation. So let's, you know, but it looks cool. I'll say that.
It absolutely does.
But yeah. Oh, and I just noticed this sword that's like on fire.
Fire. Dang.
Wow.
Well, I guess that makes sense
with
Magic the Gathering. They're gonna
they're gonna beef up the magic, right?
Yeah.
It's in their name, for crying out loud, you know.
Absolutely.
Because we've got like elven warriors down here and stuff, and it's pretty cool. It's another one of those things. I'm like, I'll probably get the card, like even if I happen to never play the game, I'll get the cards because I kind of want to, like, you know, put this together and frame it or something.
Little puzzle,
like, it's a puzzle. Yeah, there we go.
Is that Prince Imrahil in the middle right? It looks like an elven warrior or something.
That's right here?
Further to the right, behind Éowyn.
Oh, yeah.
Who is that?
I don't know.
Is that Theoden? I have no idea. I see the Swan Knight,
Theoden.
so I think it's with the banner. I think that's Imrahil.
Imrahil, yeah. Because I think this is probably Theoden, which is like, how did Eowyn end up over here?
Yeah.
Like, she climbed up over here. But it's chaos, it's battle, you know, people end up
Absolutely.
different places. So then we've got Knights of Gondor. Here's the guy with the flaming sword. Oh, there's a dwarf. Maybe that's Gimli. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
It looks cool though. I can only imagine this is the tip of the iceberg in terms of the art.
Yeah.
Got another super chat. Thank you, Mega Bilbo. Any thoughts on Glorfindel? According to Tolkien's later writings, he should re-arrive in Middle Earth during the Second Age, unless they choose to go with Arwen again. That's awesome. Oh man, that comment just made my day. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, Glorfindel. You know, because so I'm assuming we're on the track of Rings of Power, talking about, you know, if Glorfindel might show up. That's where I'm assuming that's where that question's stemming from. With the whole time compression thing, like it's one of the few casting, you know, because usually like with shows, as seasons go on, new characters come in and it's like a big story, you know, like,
Yeah.
oh, so and so has been cast as this character. But with the time compression thing, we've like got all the players already in the show. So it's not like, you know, oh, season 2 is going to be, you know, starting this storyline, so Elendil is going to come into play. You know, we've already got him.
Yeah.
We've got the people who are going to be there at the end. So like some of the few that could pop up, like we heard that Círdan, I saw
that's so
was going to
weird
be in
to
season
me.
2.
That's so weird to me that he's not already in the show. So, you know, you've got, let's say, like 8 or 9 hard-hitting characters at the end of the age, especially amongst elves, that are actually in Tolkien's works, and then you don't use all of them, but then you make some of your own characters, especially ones like Círdan, where it's like he's right there in Mythland. He's right there.
Yeah.
So I don't know where they're going to hide him for season 1. He'll just be in the background.
Maybe he's
somewhere.
making boats, man.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's true.
He like, you know, he saw some stuff, you know, you've not seen
take
what
some
he
time
has
off.
seen.
Yeah.
You haven't seen
That's
what
true.
he's seen, Yoystan. So like, I mean, he did go through a lot in you know, the first age, you know. So maybe he's like just checking. He's been around a long time too, so maybe this is like, you know, him entering his retirement years. Not really, because he goes to the Last Alliance. Maybe he's called out of retirement for the Last Alliance. I'm too old for this stuff.
Oh, I like it. He needed time to properly grow the beard.
They're like, Círdan, we need you for one last ride.
One last.
But no, maybe he's, you know, maybe he's building ships or something. I don't know.
That's true.
I mean, I'm curious because he is one of the ones that I expected to be there already. But
the infinite question that will always plague us is, where is Celeborn? And the fact that they're like, you want Celeborn? Okay, we hear you. We'll give you Círdan. It's like, okay, thanks. Awesome.
Yeah. So do you think, I'm really curious because, you know, obviously in the books, like Galadriel's already married and everything.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to bet, I would assume that they're not at this point, and like with the show. I would assume that I like, here is what I've said a couple times, like my prediction, I guess you could say, like what I feel like could, you know, because obviously we see Galadriel as she is starting the show, and we know how she ends up by the time of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And even like by the time of the Last Alliance, we know that
absolutely.
there's going to be an arc there. And I have a feeling that Celeborn and possibly the birth of their daughter could help her in that arc. Like,
that makes sense.
I have a feeling, this is just my guess, and like how, you know, if I was given, you know, the parameters that we currently know, and they said like, okay, how's this going to make sense? I would say, okay, Galadriel is going to meet Celeborn. She's going to have a daughter, and that is going to be part of what makes her go from being a hot-headed, you know, offensive warrior type, wanting to attack, into someone who defends, you know,
Yeah.
who's
Well,
more focused on protecting her people, like we see her do in Lorien.
yeah.
You know, if you know, you're familiar with the books, like the northern part of the War of the Ring, largely her part is protecting the realm from attacks.
And I'm curious from a writing point of view because it seems like they're very much setting Galadriel up to be this um, warrior maiden archetype, almost like an
Mhm.
Eowyn type of character. And then you have characters like Elrond who say, you know, it's time to hang up the sword. You don't have to keep doing this. And then she says, no, I have to because of what I've seen.
Mm.
And they're kind of trapping themselves, I feel like, in a writing corner because then, okay, let's say she does hang up her sword and everything. I mean, at this rate, I could only see her doing that after the last alliance. But if she figures out, oh, I shouldn't be as hot headed, I shouldn't be such a warrior, I should be kind and powerful in my own right, they're almost trying to play it both ways where it's like, no, she's right to be a warrior, and then no, she's right to hang up the sword. It's just going to be kind of this weird change. I feel like it's definitely a character arc I could see happening, but then you could make the argument of after the last alliance, why isn't she still a warrior?
Yeah,
it's going to be a little strange.
Yeah, it like there's so many. Obviously, it's like, you know, the last alliance is 4 seasons away at this point, so it's hard to say. But like, I don't know, like if it was done well, like I think it could be a powerful thing for her to give up this vendetta and
Exactly.
the thirst for revenge, you know. And what better thing to give that up for than the sake of your daughter, you know?
Very true. Very
to
true.
protect your daughter.
It's just strange. They're painting her very much right now in the trailers at least as almost like what she's doing is what she should be doing versus, oh, that's kind of flawed because, you know, you might get hurt or you might not know what you're doing as a hot-headed warrior. So I'm not quite sure how they're going to do that, how they're going to say it's the right thing for her to be a warrior now, and then it's not the right thing for her to be a warrior later, even though Sauron comes back again.
Right.
In the Third Age.
Yeah. And I try to, like, I'm constantly reminding myself that trailers are
void of context. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're made for, you know, at their core, made for casual audience. Like, what's
true.
I mean, like, I joked on Twitter the other day that one that was like insinuating romance between Halbrand and Galadriel, I was like, nope, don't like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, this promo was intentionally made for like the Twilight fans, I think.
Yeah.
You know? That's the core audience for this promo. Hopefully that's not the actual what happens in the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
So J Mac, thank you so much for the super chat. Have any of you guys played Game Workshop's Lord of the Rings miniature game?
I haven't.
Have you played it? So I have it again, sealed on my shelf. The guys at Game Workshop actually sent me some, and they also sent me some of the paints. I have some of the paints sitting around here, because I forgot about the aspect, like, oh yeah, you have to paint it, and I got this box with the game and the paints, and I was like, oh, like I really want to, and it's like it seems like one of those really chill things to do is like just sit there and paint, like put on the audiobooks or the soundtrack or something. I just need to find the time to do it is the thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Especially but yeah, like coming out. All these things, there are so many, you know, in the years since starting this channel, I've been exposed to so many wonderfully nerdy games that like either require multiple people or a lot of time. And yeah, I'm just trying to find some time to dive into those such things.
Well, Matt, you know, I totally get you, and a lot of these games come from just over the generations, like since Tolkien wrote the books in the first place, which is so cool. But as your kids are getting older, I think like the Lord of the Rings D&D, to run a campaign with your kids and your wife too, if she was interested, that would be so perfect. That you guys would have a blast doing that.
I think the kids I could get to do that. I don't know about. I don't know about Mrs. Nerd. She might.
Mrs. Nerd.
Yeah, Mrs. Nerd, that's her married name because
Oh yeah,
Nerd is not necessarily part of who she is, but she's married to me, so
I
that's
like
how
it.
she gets that. It's almost it's not an accurate description to call her Mrs. Nerd so much. James Montrum, thanks so much for the super chat. He says, Celeborn, tell me, where is me? That's a good one. I haven't seen that meme yet, so I think you should make that meme. Will they make any games equivalent to Lord of the Rings Conquest? Thanks so much for the super chat, Greg. So that was one of those games. I enjoyed it. It wasn't, I think Battlefront was better, executed and design wise and everything. But for what it was, I really enjoyed it. I mean to do it on a future like retro gaming stream at some point, just for the sake of nostalgia.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a fun game, kind of broken. They ran out of time, I think, with the rights. So they had to push it out if they were going to go.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, it's kind of like in a broken state for sure, but there might be mods to kind of repair it a little bit too.
Yeah. I remember it was they had like a beta group. Somehow I got in a beta group like back then on some message board. Yeah. And so I ended up like they had all these activities for you to do. This was a while ago. So it was nothing like social media of today, but it was like on their website, you logged in and they had, different challenges for you to do. And you would like upload, gosh, I think there was like somewhere it was like upload a video of you talking about this character. It was just these random things. And then you would get like points for that. And then you could like redeem them in their store. So I ended up like redeeming it for a copy of the game. And I don't remember if I got any other like merch items from that. It's been ages and ages ago.
Wow. That's so cool. I didn't know they did that.
But yeah, I think, for my part, and this actually makes a pretty okay segue into our next topic, which is Private Division and Wētā Workshop announcing that they are in development on a Middle-earth video game.
I've already forgotten about that since we started the stream. There's just so much.
I told you there's a lot to talk about today. Yeah, I agree. There's some chat going on about the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War games. Those are really fun, even though the lore is garbage. But they're really fun games. So my dream for this, I'm gonna go first here. My dream for this is open world RPG. Think like I think of games like Breath of the Wild. So not as cartoony as Breath of the Wild, obviously, but something in that vein where you just have this massive map to play on. And I know these usually don't go hand in hand, but I always enjoy like the old Return of the King game, how you got to play as different characters. Like I would love to have a Middle Earth game where like I loved in that game where you could unlock Merry in his Rohan armor and Pippin in his Gondor armor.
And there was like always extra bonus missions and things to run to keep it. And you could like rerun missions and stuff. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Open world. Yeah. So right now, my go-to open world game, I mean, I guess you have the Shadow games. They're pretty good, but you're only in Mordor.
Yeah.
And it's like the bleakest. That was kind of when the Gollum game was announced, and it was like, yeah, it's Gollum in Mordor. I'm like, can we get out of Mordor, please?
I swear we've gotten the most amount of Lord of the Rings games in Mordor, which is one of the most uninteresting parts of Middle Earth. I like it, but it's not.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I said, I appreciate that, like, especially in Shadow of War, because the map gets bigger, you learn some of the geography. So you learn about Nirn a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is just a fun name to say, Nirn,
Nirn. Yeah.
But yeah, I would really, really love an open world game in Middle Earth, because right now my go-to is Lego Lord of the Rings for open world to wander around Middle Earth. If I want to wander around Middle Earth, it's Lego Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's always Lord of the Rings Online, but...
Oh, well, yes, obviously. Okay.
Yeah.
So console game. Sorry. I'm thinking of console game.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I agree totally with people in the chat that if they could rival the Elder Scrolls, Oblivion, Skyrim, That would be incredible because Skyrim is absolutely massive. They have it's an entire northern like continent almost, and you just have like 9 big major cities with a bunch of little things. So they could do that for Eriador or Rovanion or Gondor and Rohan. Like they could do something like that for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I hope it's not, because like wasn't Amazon talking about doing a something very similar sounding to Lord of the Rings Online? Like they were talking about,
they were going
at the time. I was like, why are we reinventing the wheel here? Like, let's do something different.
It was such a strange thing. So, for those of you in the chat or Matt, I'm not sure if you played this, but the game Warframe, it's a very fast-paced kind of sci-fi RPG style game.
Okay.
It was those creators working, I think, at like with the Amazon gaming studio. They were going to develop a second age Lord of the Rings MMO, but it apparently had nothing to do with the show for some reason. I'm not sure. And then it got, canceled like a year ago. But the strange thing is, why would they do it at this point in time? And I'm not sure. Amazon's gaming studio does not have the best track record. Athlon Games, Warframe company, they're pretty good, but it's strange. Like shout out to Chiara, they canned it because Amazon gaming studio sucks.
I don't think anybody had really like high hopes for it or anything like that for sure. But I'm very curious, like again, going back to kind of our original feeling of holy cow, our heads could be spinning from all the Tolkien content. I mean, what have we listed off? Like 3 or 4 video games right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. With the potential for many, many more.
Yes. Yeah. And honestly, it's kind of funny because, as we were talking about films and TV series, how I don't want there to be too much too quick. Like I want quality, not quantity. With video games, I'm much less like, I don't care as much. I'm like, well, something's gonna hit. Some of them will probably suck, but some of them will probably be pretty good. So bring them on. Because we've had terrible video games. There's so many bad video games made, and it's kind of worth it to go through the bad ones, because when you do get a good one, it's like, that's the good stuff.
Oh yeah,
that's where you can spend hours of your time and love every minute of it.
Absolutely. I mean, even I think when, like the Elder Scrolls franchise, when they really spend 5 to 10 years building a game, it shows, because Skyrim came out 10 years ago and it's still one of the most popular video games in all of history. And today it still is. And it's just, I hope they really spend time with it. I think the Lord of the Rings Online, it definitely needs some visual overhauls and things like that. And I think that's coming. They are really putting a lot of effort into the game. I want to say a visual overhaul is coming next year at some point, from what I've read.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I know they're really trying to renovate things. I can't remember. I've heard rumors of like console adaptations for Lord of the Rings Online and things like that. So I'm really hoping
that would be interesting.
Yeah, they haven't opened up the East and the South yet, but I think that's where we're headed next, is Harad. And
I could see that. Yeah. Obviously they're not tied into the show in any way, but that's not to say they won't possibly take advantage of some of the things that will be featured in the show, like the South.
Absolutely.
We were just going over the map of the Southlands, and it would be convenient of Lord of the Rings Online to take advantage of that and be like, hey, you want to know more about the Southlands?
I bet they do. I wonder if that's why they waited, because they went back actually north into the Grey Mountains for a couple years. So I wonder if that's why they waited on going south and east.
Oh, that could be. Yeah. But I agree with Sean here. Bad video games don't feel like such a loss. I think they're easier to ignore, I guess. Like games, just like there's always new video games coming out. So like if a bad one comes out, it's just like, whatever. I just don't feel like there are a lot of Lord of the Rings ones. So all of those, I just want those to be hard hitters. Yes. So Nerd Cookies, shout out to Nerd Cookies, Elaine here in the chat. I want rewatchable content versus more content. I won't rewatch the Hobbit movies regularly, but will watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And I will say, I don't think I've brought it up much on the channel or anything, but that is a measuring stick for me on a lot of films and TV shows and stuff are rewatchability. So there's a lot of popular movies and TV shows that people really like, but I would never rewatch. And so they're not very high on my list because I like something that I can go back to. So if an entire film centers around a mystery and that's the whole thing, and then it's the mystery and it kills the entire show, then
it's funny. Sometimes those have rewatchability because you're like, ooh, there were hints that I didn't pick up or Easter eggs. But that again, that's a really well-made movie if that's the case. Usually I agree. Right. It's it's not like that. One and done for a lot of films out there.
Fellowship of the Fans.
Yeah.
Fellowship of Fans. I said of the fans. Fellowship of Fans enters the chat. But going back to what Elaine said, yes, I obviously rewatch Lord of the Rings a lot more than I do the Hobbit films. I will go back though. One of my things that I'll do is when I know that I'm not going to sit down and watch an entire movie, but I'll probably pay attention to the first 20 minutes or so and then, go on to working on my laptop or something.
Yeah.
I'll put on Battle of the Five Armies just so I can watch Smaug destroy Lake Town and get killed by Bard and everything, because I really like that scene. And I thought that particular scene was really well done. And then if I, drift in and out the rest of it, then whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I know if I put on Lord of the Rings, I'm going to get sucked in and I'm not going to get anything done.
No, yeah, absolutely. That's an experience that you got to just be there for every single time. Yeah. Especially because I noticed something new every single time, especially since the 4K came out.
Oh, the 4K. Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't see that in the background. Well, something that I wanted to mention that I saw about the Wētā game too, before I forget.
Oh yeah.
Is that I know it's going to be book oriented, like Lord of the Rings Online, versus set in any cinematic sort of world. So not Shadow of War like Peter Jackson, because that was still falling in the Jacksonian universe in many ways. I don't know if Amazon will end up releasing any games that take place in their universe, but this will be book universe, which is great. I'm so excited for that.
We are pro book universe for sure. See, Fellowship of Fans doesn't even have the right stuff figured out. So I don't have a chart, but Fellowship knows people. Maybe he can get us a chart. Ellen Kirby, thanks for super chat. Love this content so much. Best time to be a nerd.
Yeah,
it is a good time to be a Tolkien nerd because you've got lots of stuff to talk about and lots of stuff to keep you busy for sure. Reading. Absolutely. And watching YouTube videos about and stuff like that.
lots of YouTubers.
Yes, lots of, oh yeah, lots. Yeah. And yeah, it's just like I said earlier, because we've had such big gaps between movie trilogies and adaptations, it's kind of head spinning right now to imagine how many Tolkien projects could be coming out in the next handful of years. But it's also exciting because, if gaming is your thing, chances are at least one of these games will be a pretty good game or, something that you might enjoy. And if there's multiple movies coming out, like I said, hopefully they're all good. I would love nothing more than, every project really takes its time and gives us something special. Obviously Tolkien fans, I feel like I've said it before, that the text and Tolkien deserve and demand greatness. And if you fall short of that, a la The Hobbit, then fans aren't gonna care so much.
It will be lost to history.
I'm gonna become pretty apathetic is kind of my thing. But it's kind of nice because the fact that the gates are open to have more. You know, we're not riding all of our hopes on one project every 10 years, where it's like, if this one, you know, collection of movies isn't good, it's gonna be another 10 years before we get anything else.
Yeah, that would be rough. That would be really rough.
Cool Sean, thanks so much for the super chat. Off topic, either of you gents attracted to particular Tolkien artists in creating your videos? Favorite piece? Also, please interview Ted Naismith. I need to reach out to Ted and see if I can get him to come on the channel. Yeah,
that would be awesome.
He is one of my favorites. Absolutely. I've often referred to John Howe, Alan Lee, and Ted Naismith as like the Holy Trinity, kind of like the core, so to speak. But goodness, I could go off on a huge list of Tolkien artists.
I was about to say, like, all my videos, I've got just in the description of every video, I've got a huge list of just all the artists that I use, some that I haven't used every video, but I love to shout them out anyway. And they're amazing.
Yes.
Ted Naismith is definitely one of my favorites. I like, Alan Lee, John Howe for sure. But for me, it's like, I like the greater spanning art. Theirs is very good, especially for like more specific art. But I really like Ralph. I'm gonna probably say his name.
Damiani.
Ralph Damiani.
Yeah.
I love his style in particular. I love how smooth everything is, and his Lord of the Rings online art. It's just incredible. I love the bright colors.
So shout out to my Patreon supporters. You will get a sneak peek probably tomorrow of 2 new pieces that Ralph did for Saturday's video on Elendil.
That is awesome.
So yes, we've got a portrait of Elendil as well as a scene with him and Gil-galad. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. If you're a Patreon or YouTube supporter, that will be posted in the Discord tomorrow.
That is awesome.
So yeah, Ralph obviously is great. I've used a lot of his work and have commissioned him for several pieces for the channel. Kip Rasmussen, Jenny Dolphin. Gosh, Jerry Vanderstelt. Does a lot of stuff based on the films in particular. Oh my gosh.
Let's see. Donato Arts.
Giancola. Donato Giancola.
The Hildebrandt brothers.
Yeah, those are classic, man.
I'm gonna totally
Tolkien calendars. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna butcher this name, but Magali
Magali. Is it Villeneuve?
Villeneuve. Yes, that's a lot better than my friend. Yep.
Yeah. Who we showed, that was the Balrog image that we showed earlier.
Oh yeah. Yep, it was. Oh yeah. So many good ones.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, look in the description of either of our videos, either of our videos, and you'll find a ton of amazing Tolkien artists that have been super generous in letting us use their art.
Absolutely. We could not do what we do without them. So huge shout out to them.
Absolutely fantastic. Let's see here. I also wanted to bring up, we got a new Elrond promo today, and I haven't been doing videos on all of these Rings of Power promos because there's so flippin' many of them. Like it'll be like, oh, here's a shot of Arondir from behind walking through the village, you know, and you can see his arrows on his back, and I'm like, that's not really worth a breakdown. So I'm not gonna mess with it.
Half the shots we've already seen before.
Yes, my time is finite, people. So I'm sorry that I can't break down every little promo. There's so stinking many of them. Oh, here we have the pronunciation. Villanueva.
Interesting. Oh, awesome.
Okay. Well, there we go. I'll try to remember that pronunciation. I need to write it out phonetically. So yeah, we got a promo here of Elrond, and I'm just gonna talk over it because I don't want to get a copyright nick for stuff here. So it talks about Elrond having kind of having this oath with Durin, not to reveal his people's secrets. And then we get this leaf that looks like it's dying, like it has some evil influence, perhaps. We get the rock smashing contest, and we get like this tension between Gil-galad and Elrond. Yeah, so just a little character piece. This is actually one that's mostly new shots.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, so a couple things we'll just go through live here. We'll do a live breakdown. This is basically what we're doing here. So we have some kind of slab that these elves are carrying, with Elrond and Durin looking on.
Mm-hmm.
What on earth do you think this is?
Well,
is this
I
the
wonder
stone table? Is that no? That's something.
Oh, that's smart. That's a smart observation.
That's a Narnia thing, guys. Sorry, we're mixing our references here.
Well, okay. It looks like a huge hunk of just stone, like granite under there or something. But
the dinner table. Someone said it's the dinner table.
I thought that's what you were saying at first, Matt. I was like, oh, that could literally be that. But I thought it was wood, actually.
Yeah, no, I was being a smart aleck. That's the more likely possibility with me. Well, let's go. Sure. Let's go and see where. I think it is.
It totally is. Good.
The stone table. The stone dinner table, to be specific. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So they set up an impromptu, like, man, this is an impressive impromptu like dining hall that they've made here. So they just kind of made it up on the spot, I guess. All right.
So it looks like, Elrond and Durin here will be quite good friends, which I do like, especially with like how Elrond treats the dwarves during the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit compared to other elves. However, do you think this would have been better served if it was Celebrimbor and like Narvi?
So I'm curious. It depends on when in the timeline they pick up, because if the Doors of Durin are already complete, like it might be that Narvi's already gone.
That's true.
So that's the monkey wrench that the time compression always throws in, because we don't know what's going to be in the past and what we're actually going to see play out. So yeah, I think like I like it from the sense, like you said, Elrond, when you what I've told people is you look at how other groups of elves treat dwarves. Thranduil, in the Hobbit movies, throws him in jail. And the elves of Lorien, with the exception of Galadriel herself, are kind of jerks to Gimli. Absolutely. They're like, the Fellowship comes to the borders of Lorien, and they're like, yeah, sure, you guys can pass, but you're gonna have to blindfold the dwarf.
Just the dwarf.
Like singles him out, and kind of throws some shade at Gimli. So, but Elrond's house, both in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, he seems to get along just fine with the dwarves. And that goes back, in my mind, that goes back to hopefully what we'll see in the show when Elrond leads Gil-galad's armies to help Eregion, which is under attack by Sauron. The dwarves come out and basically save Elrond's behind, because he's gonna get crushed by Sauron, but then the dwarves come out of Khazad-dûm, attack Sauron's rear, and divert his attention, and so Elrond's able to escape and found Rivendell. So the fact that there's a relationship here between between Elrond and Durin, I think could make that an even more emotional moment than it just being a bunch of random dwarves saving Elrond, and then he's thankful later.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I wondered with Celebrimbor, because that was the reason that they settled in Eregion specifically, was the promise of Mithril and the friendship with the dwarves. It is interesting too. I know Elrond in particular, like you said, with the dwarves saving him during the War of the Elves and Sauron. He definitely has a good relationship with the dwarves. I wouldn't say his whole family does, because his great grandfather was killed by many dwarves, but
Yeah.
But definitely different dwarves, for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's I don't know. I kind of expected.
Although some of those first age dwarves do come to live in Khazad-dûm
They
and
do.
kind of like
They do.
blend in with the Longbeards. So
Mhm.
yeah. So like I'm totally okay with the idea that Elrond has a friendship and seems more open to that friendship, I guess,
Yeah.
than some of the other elves that we might see.
And it's strange that Gil-galad, that he's not. Later in this here, we've got him saying, "Would you not betray Durin's or the dwarves' secrets to save your own people?" Which is
because he says, "I swore an
strange.
oath to Durin never to reveal his people's secrets," and he said, "What if keeping your promise to his people meant ensuring the doom of your own?" It's like, man, that's dramatic.
It is. And
Jeez.
also I feel like is in a Tolkienian fashion, is it worth keeping your oath, ensuring the doom of your own people? Probably so.
Because oaths are not made to be broken. Like,
absolutely.
You got to be careful making oaths in Middle Earth because they will drive you to burn ships and maybe not. Maybe the oath itself didn't. That was just Feanor being a jerk, more so.
Yeah.
But they will drive you to not one, not two, but 3 kinslayings.
Yeah, absolutely.
And stealing the Silmarils from a Maiar, who is who has them after the War of Wrath. Like it makes you make a lot of bad decisions, and oaths, if broken, can turn you into an undead army per se, and forever label you as an oath breaker. So
absolutely,
unless you have like 3,000 years to chill out until Isildur's heir comes and puts you to work.
Absolutely. Well, and the leaf here, with the darkness running through it, it kind of reminds me of how the sword, that black sword that we keep seeing, it has that same sort of dark magic that makes the sword come together. I don't know.
It looks like a reverse Morgul blade, like how it's it's forming, in the same, like if you played it back, it would look like a Morgul blade disappearing, basically.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. And this leaf, I saw someone post online, we get the imagery that makes us think that this might be leaves from Lorien, perhaps, because we get this shot of not Lorien, sorry, of Linden. Because we get this shot of Linden right afterward. But there's that tree in Khazad-dûm that we've seen in some images behind Elrond, and someone was saying that perhaps this is just a fan theory, but that the presence of Durin's Bane, and we've seen the shots of Durin the Fourth holding Mithril, like what looks like raw Mithril, and perhaps like them getting closer to Durin's Bane is what's causing this tree to lose its leaves and wither or something, which is an interesting theory. It's totally
it is.
It's just a theory, but
it's the mega
tree. Sean says it's the mega tree from Mordor.
Oh yeah. It's well, and it's an interesting theory for sure, because that seems to be something that would fit in with what the show's setting up. Again, there's no context in these trailers, so we don't really know, but I don't know if some of these problems between people are going to be kind of artificial or fabricated for sake of the show, and I'm
curious of them coming together later, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I'm very curious to see if they do, if they change the Fall of Moria to be during this show, just to do it, because they're doing so many dwarven things. I'm very curious if they just pull it back from the Third Age into the Second and just say we're doing the Fall of Moria.
Yeah, I hope not, because
Me too.
Because I think see, now I'm second guessing myself, because one of the Durins could have potentially fought in the last alliance, I believe.
Yeah, I want to say
was it the third?
I thought it was the fourth. The fourth, I think, because I think the third received the ring, and it was either the fourth or fifth that the fourth or fifth.
The third receives the ring. Yeah, there. I love I pulled up Tolkien Gateway, and like the birth date is like late second age, early third.
Early third age, yeah.
Like,
For
cool.
both like during the fourth and fifth, right?
Yes, it's like
Yeah.
really narrow it down there for me. Thank you. Like, and I mean, it's just Tolkien didn't give us that. But it is during the fourth that is it during the fourth that's killed by the Balrog?
During the sixth, I think, because then the seventh.
Sixth.
During the seventh reclaims Moria.
Yes.
And during the sixth loses it.
Yes,
so,
it is during the sixth. So that's like, yeah, 1980.
far.
I always remember because like it feels funny to say 1980.
1980,
like,
yeah.
It happened in 1980.
Yeah, I can't believe Moria fell 40 years ago.
Back when the Bee Gees were topping the charts. Okay, sorry. Nerd Cookies. The showrunners denied they were pulling any third age into the second age at the SDCC panel. Good. I didn't remember that. I was actually there, but I did not remember that.
It was a lot. It was,
but
a lot
I totally believe you because there was a lot, and it was a lot to try to keep track of. Yeah, I hope not. I hope they don't pull the Balrog. Like I'm pretty sure that the Balrog that we saw in the Comic-Con teaser is part of a flashback, is my thought. Like I think that takes place in whether it's the War of Wrath or the Dagor Bragaloth or the Nir Naith Arnoediad, or if they're like kind of, I've heard I think the guys from the Prancing Pony podcast were saying their theory was that they're going to kind of mush all those together and just like make it, there was a great battle that ended the first age and like take elements from each perhaps, and maybe leave it more obscure, like which battle it's depicting, and just show like chaos, which
that makes sense.
If it's a prologue sequence, like it'll probably just be like there's a really big battle. But
I guess that's fair enough. Yeah, combining all of those for specific sake of that. I do wish they had the rights to Silmarillion just so they could say, hey, here's this. We have no excuse not to show what is canon.
Yeah. And then we get a shot a little bit from the clips we've seen, and they actually showed some of this at Comic-Con in Hall H. And I don't know if you've heard this, Yoystan, but the setup for this scene is Elrond has come to visit Durin the Fourth in Khazad-dûm, and Durin the Fourth is less than happy to see him and just keeps calling him Elf instead of calling him Elrond, and challenges him to this rock smashing contest, and basically says, if you win, you will win from me a boon, or basically he gets a a favor from
interesting.
From so like if that's an audience with him to talk with him,
yeah.
But if Elrond loses. If Elrond loses, then he's banished from all dwarf lands forever.
What?
Yeah. So like
Elrond's like, I wasn't here. I didn't sign up for this.
Yes. And so like, it's definitely one of those, like it was a very amusing scene to see, because Elrond walks in and like you can tell he's expecting to be like, oh, I'm meeting up with my buddy and like, this is going to be great. And then like Durin the Fourth comes in, like guns ablazing, calling him Elf, like basically saying, get the heck out of here. And he's kind of taken off guard, like what is happening?
That is awesome.
Yeah. So the friendship of Durin and Elrond, I think, is one that I think it could work really well. I hope it does, and I hope that it logically leads into part of the whole picture of Elrond that we don't necessarily get explained in the later tales, where like, why is it that Elrond is nicer to dwarves than any of the other elven leaders or realms, and I think it could, rather, like I said before, rather than like, I'm imagining Durin the Fourth is probably going to be the one that bails Elrond out fighting against Sauron in the War of Elves and Sauron. So, I could see there coming a moment where Durin the Fourth has to make a choice. Like, is he going to go into Khazad-dûm, retreat, and like shut the gates, or is he going to go out and risk his own life and the lives of his dwarves to help out Elrond and the elves?
That would be awesome. I hope that comes to fruition. Right now, we're seeing very much politician, counselor Elrond, and the commander of Gil-galad's armies is Galadriel for some reason, and I'm hoping they're not switching those roles per se,
right?
Because we definitely need Elrond to be in that war so he can found Imladris.
Yeah, and that's always been my thing. Like I with the whole Galadriel warrior thing, like I have no question in my mind Galadriel is capable of that.
Totally.
The thing where I kind of I don't know, saying draw the line is kind of like dramatic, but the thing that I'm looking for, to not happen, if that makes sense, is for Galadriel to take the place of Elrond. So like, in addition to Elrond, great, cool, okay, like Galadriel, she can kick some butt. Like, the expansion of the role of Galadriel is totally fine. Like, she's a great character.
She is.
If you're gonna, if looking at Tolkien's world and you say like, oh, we need a strong female character, why create one when you've got Galadriel right there?
Totally. Absolutely.
So beef up her role, absolutely, but don't like take away from other great characters for in order to build that up, which is, I think, is a common mistake a lot of times in productions nowadays. But I'm hopeful, again, who knows, might be a fool's hope, but I'm hopeful that like Elrond will get to where he needs to be when he needs to be there.
Yeah, so that's what I'm hoping too.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that we get Elrond leading some elves in reinforcement of Eregion and founding Rivendell. That would be really cool to see Rivendell like under construction. Perhaps,
that would be amazing.
We might see, and especially if, I mean, who knows? Like the Balrog looks awfully close to the depictions of Peter Jackson's. So like, it makes me wonder, like, can they, get close to the depiction of Rivendell to where, it's not fully realized yet, but it's like you can see it being constructed and it's on its way to that. Would be interesting.
That would be awesome. And this is also, again, where I'm a little nervous with Celeborn's absence, is because he commands a force himself. He and Elrond meet and combine their forces and then both retreat into the valley. So I'm just really hoping that Galadriel, who I don't know if she's the commander of all of Gil-galad's armies, which like the high commander, which would be interesting. I'm just not sure how I feel about that, especially if she's the one going on an adventure to Numenor. It's like, you would think that if she's the commander of all his armies, she wouldn't be the one.
Yeah, I don't think she goes to Numenor voluntarily. Like, I'm pretty sure that's a result of the shipwreck that we've seen.
Gotcha.
Because that was another clip actually at Comic-Con. At Comic-Con they showed a clip where it shows that Elendil like picks up Galadriel and Halbrand, who are shipwrecked, and that's how they get to Numenor. Yeah.
Okay. Great. I'm not sure. I wonder where they were headed originally, Halbrand and Galadriel.
So my theory, I think they're separate shipwrecks. I don't think they were together.
Okay.
The ships we've seen in promos of
all the elves, and then
yeah. So what I think is, I think that perhaps Gil-galad, perhaps even in that ceremony where he's putting the crowns on him, it's like a ceremony that precedes them sailing west, and that
interesting.
Maybe she's even like ordered, like, hey,
you're going
you're
west.
Done. I'm taking you out of the game. Basically, Gil-galad says, like, I'm taking you out of the game. You're going back west. Bye. Like, kind of like what Elrond's telling her, like, hey, it's time to put up your sword. Like, you've done enough, whatever. Like,
interesting.
Which, maybe or maybe not. Like, again, theories.
Yeah, totally speculations. Yeah. But I hadn't considered that before that ceremony.
So so like, I think maybe there's maybe that's what they're doing, is they're trying to sail into the west, and maybe the the Doom of Mandos comes into play, and that's the storm that wrecks them. Or maybe it's that, sea serpent monster thing. But anyway, somehow, that boat gets sunk and shipwrecked, and that's how she ends up in Numenor.
Sense.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So then going back to the Elrond piece promo here, we got Durin the Fourth and Elrond, and they look. So I think Fellowship of Fans had a rumor that there was some kind of like cave-in at some point, which looks, if I had to guess, this is what is happening here. I think this is like we're trapped in a cave-in and we're hanging out because there's nothing else to do when you're caved in, I guess.
Very fascinating.
Yeah, because we've got like all this dirt, or maybe this is after their rock smashing and they're just
chilling afterwards.
They're just they're just like covered in dirt from smashing so many rocks. And so Durin tells him, I always thought you were a mite dwarvish for an elf. So that's probably a compliment,
Yeah, I'd say so.
For dwarf. And then they've got a very Legolas Gimli
vibe,
vibe of like looking back and forth, like what about side by side with a friend?
Right,
I could do that. Yeah, it's just reverse shot here.
Interesting. Yeah, it'd be cool to see this friendship build up over time to lead up to either the War of the Elves and Sauron or the War of the Last Alliance. Yeah, it's interesting.
Oh, this is an interesting. So there's a theory going around that Halbrand is Sauron. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you've heard that one.
Yep. I've been wondering.
So I'm curious. Like, I am personally, and apologies if I've said this on a previous live stream because I've joked with so many people about it. I think everybody is Sauron. Everybody. All the people we've seen so far, they're all Sauron.
Competing against himself. Yeah.
And the best thing, I need someone to do a mock-up of this. I saw someone make this joke that it's like Captain Crunch, and it's actually called the Rings of Power. Oops, all Sauron, and everyone, all of them are Sauron.
All of them. That would be unexpected. Like that would be a real surprise for sure.
Yes. But in all seriousness, so Cool Sean says that Halbrand stows away on the elves' ship, which has Galadriel on board, and due to who we think, well, he says no Halbrand to be. I don't know if we know it. I think it's a rumor, but the Valar sink it, because if it was, that would track. Like they're not going to say like, oh, Sauron, come on over.
Yeah, he's trying to do some shenanigans in Valinor, and then ends up going to Numenor instead. And he's like, yeah, okay, I'll just mess some things up here too. Yeah. That's great.
As long as it's not like, oh, let's feel bad for Sauron. I don't want to feel bad for Sauron.
No, I don't want to feel bad for the orcs.
I don't want them to. He's not I don't want him to get the Loki / Boba Fett treatment where he's like a villain that now we like,
Yeah.
Like,
nope.
Just give me straight up evil, malice, conniving, evil.
Yeah.
I said evil twice because it's important.
It would be kind of cool to see him like as his whatever form he takes in Numenor, trying to convince both the Numenorians and the audience to be like, I have changed, I'm a good guy. And then at the audience is like, maybe he is, and then he just sinks Numenor. And could be interesting to see if his deception goes that far, even to us who have seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But we all know it's just a smoke show,
Yeah, I always envisioned him, having the same fair form as Anatar when he was in Numenor. At least, when it comes time for deception time,
That's
obviously.
Fair. I wonder if, because they hated the elves, I feel like he might take a more of a mannish form, like that could look like a Numenorian, just so he's like, I'm with you guys. The elves suck. Yeah.
Yeah. And he'd probably be super tall too, because all the Numenorians are super tall.
Oh yeah.
In the books anyway. Yeah. I doubt that they didn't cast like all NBA stars for Numenorians.
Shoot.
So we're not going to get like having chatted with Lloyd Owen, like he's taller than me for sure, but he's not like 7'11", like Elendil the Tall. But yeah.
Shoot. Wow. Look how they're disrespecting the canon.
Oh man.
Yeah.
How did you not
get a 7'10" guy? Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, I took a
Man.
quick scour to see if there was any news that came out over the last like 2 hours.
Oh yeah, that's a good, at the rate that it's been going. That's
Yeah,
not a
absolutely.
bad thing.
I think we're okay. I think
Oh,
we've
okay,
covered
good.
it. I think we're
thought
good.
you were gonna drop a bomb there. I was like,
No, sorry. Yeah, I should have set that up better. No, I think we're good, but probably the minute after this live stream ends, there'll be like
oh my gosh, yeah.
a new thing.
We'll have something. Dirk Nowinski is Elendil. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it turns out the hobbits invented golf, the Numenorians invented basketball. I don't know who else. What would the dwarves? What sport would the dwarves invent?
Rugby, for sure. Rugby.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
They're all in the mud, throwing like a stone around.
Yeah. And the elves would invent baseball because it's beautiful.
Yeah, I like that. And it's like elegant, you know?
It's elegant. People will say like, oh, soccer is the most elegant game. Or what, the most beautiful game, but sorry, football for the international folks here. Football.
No, if you ever see a knee, like somebody's knee, you know, get smashed in soccer or football, no, that's not as elegant for sure. Ugh, but that's also kind of dwarvish for sure.
Yeah, yeah. You know who would invent soccer? Is the Vala Lorien. because he's the master of dreams.
Oh yeah,
puts you to sleep.
Oh
man,
are you guys all gonna take?
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I like to mess with my especially those, you know, when we were over in Europe. Yeah, they're very big into their soccer. Because he kicks the moon across the sky. That's pretty good too. No, I like to poke fun. Because I've been told my whole life how boring baseball is, and so like.
Oh yeah, you got to throw some shade back.
Yeah, I gotta. You can. You know, and yeah, I get a lot of flack. Anytime I call it soccer, I get a lot of flack because they're like, "What do you mean football?" I'm like, "Yeah, but sorry, I'm American."
Yeah, yeah, that's what we do.
Something different over here.
So a nice question to kind of begin to maybe wrap things up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matt, what would be one thing that we've gotten no indication of yet that would be an amazing surprise for season 1 of Rings of Power?
Besides Celeborn?
Besides Celeborn, yeah.
Oh gosh. Is it snarky to say the Rings of Power? Like I would.
That's fair.
Like I have this, like I've pre-made a Jeff Goldblum meme from Jurassic Park that says, "Do you have any Rings of Power in your Rings of Power show?" Because I'm like if we get too far into this thing without seeing some Rings of Power,
that's fair.
You know,
season 4 by the time they're starting, like, all right, let's go to Oregon.
Now, in all seriousness, like obviously, I do want to see the creation of the Rings of Power. I love some of the old school artwork, in particular of Celebrimbor forging the Rings of Power.
Yeah.
And I also am very, very curious to see what they pull from the First Age. So at Comic-Con, the big headline moment for me, the moment in the Comic-Con reel that stood out, and I think Corey and I talked about when I did a stream from the One Rings party at Comic-Con. I think we talked about the experience and how it was on this 180 screen, and these subwoofers just like let out this huge boom, and it like radiated from this ring script that was on the center screen, and then it would like change the image along the sides. Like it was a crazy experience. Like it looked legit. It was so cool. But the moment of all that footage, as I was whipping my head around back and forth trying to catch all 180 degrees of it, was the two trees, the leaves on the trees shriveling and dying. And then it cuts to a wide shot of the two trees continuing to die. And in the background, you see the shadow of Morgoth. The outline of the shadow of Morgoth. And that was one of those images that, like, as soon as I saw it, obviously I knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And it gave me goosebumps seeing the idea of Morgoth being depicted,
Yeah.
even if that's like essentially it, and we get very little else of him, I think that moment of just one of the supreme acts of evil in the history of Middle Earth, the destruction of the two trees, could be like, it'll be one of the coolest moments, I think,
that would be
for
amazing.
book fans, for Silmarillion fans, and Tolkien book fans to experience.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That would be phenomenal. For me, it's like, I think anything that points to them having more rights than we think that they do.
Yeah.
That would, so if I see Aldarion and Arendis appear, and we see something from the Unfinished Tales where I'm like, wait a minute, they have the rights to this, that would blow me away and give me so much more hope even for the show. Because I'd be like, oh, they've been playing us all along. Like they have the rights to the Silmarillion, or some parts of it.
Yeah. And like I've been telling people, it sounds like a more fluid situation than people seem to want to believe. Like it seems like, and I mean, I think even in like an old news piece, there was kind of the indication that they could get permission for certain things if they, from the Tolkien estate.
That would be awesome.
But like I've seen so many comment, when like a teaser or something comes out, I do a breakdown and I'm like, oh look, this looks like this is what this is, and people say like they can't do that. And I'm like, well, they just did.
Yeah, so, they already
like,
have.
I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, I think that's a really good answer. Like I'm curious to see, because eventually we'll know from seeing these things, like clearly they'll have the rights to something. Otherwise there'll be a massive lawsuit that will break the news. Because they've depicted something that they're not allowed to.
Absolutely.
But I would imagine they have people on that are in charge of making sure they don't push
the boundaries
too far.
Push
the boundaries too far. It's like Daniel Faulkner of Wētā was telling me about Arwen's sword and also Elrond's in the Hobbit movies. He uses that one in the Hobbit movies, same sword. That is Idril's sword from Gondolin that they created, but they didn't inscribe it with like Idril's name because they didn't have the rights to use Idril's name, or it was something like that, where but they could say like, this is the blade of the daughter of the King of Gondolin, because the King of Gondolin is referenced in Lord of the Rings. So like
cool.
So they can like do workarounds and stuff, and find creative ways to make references and everything. But yeah, all that to say, I think that's a great answer, and I'm very very curious to see, what, especially if there's a flashback sequence, which I think there will be. And based off, that is another thing we didn't even talk about, the track listing coming out for the soundtrack.
Oh yeah, I missed that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we'll pull it up really really quick.
Sounds
this will be the last thing that we've got here. Because I think there was even a track that kind of implies a flashback sequence, perhaps. Sorry, I've got to scroll back a little bit. There's been so much news that I can't, usually I'd be able to just pull up my Twitter feed and say like, oh yeah, it was that tweet that I did. But there's been so many of them where I'm like, hey, there's this news and this news.
It's all right. Strange. We got nothing for years, and then all of this at once.
All right. So we've got the main title theme that's composed by Howard Shore, and then the rest is Bear McCreary. So we've got Galadriel, Khazad-dûm, Nori Brandyfoot, which is one of the Harfoots, the Stranger, Numenor, Sauron, Valinor, In the Beginning. And that's the one I kind of had bullet pointed, like, okay, that seems like a flashback sequence.
Because that's the first 3 words of the Silmarillion, right? It's in the beginning.
Is it really?
Yeah. I think so. With the Ainu Lindale, I'll check.
Yeah. See, my mind went to like, in the beginning is like the first words of the Bible, Which I mean, for us, Silmarillion is it is very biblical book, you know, in terms of its language and everything. So
yeah, no, sorry, there was Eru the one Huanarda, but no, it is
but
biblical.
still, I
Yeah,
mean, it's the same kind of, you know.
Yeah,
he didn't want to like
yeah,
verbatim take it from the Bible.
Sure.
Like there's enough thous and, you know,
oh yeah,
and stuff to make it biblical. So then we've got Elrond, half elven, Durin the Fourth, Harfoot Life, Bronwyn and Arondir, Halbrand, The Boat, Sundering Seas, Nobody Goes Off Trail, which I'm guessing that kind of sounds like another Harfoot one, Elendil and Isildur, White Leaves, presumably referencing the White Tree of Nimloth, The Secrets of the Mountain, I'm guessing a Khazad-dûm reference, Nolwa Matar, which roughly translates to Bold Warrior.
Okay.
Nampat, I haven't seen what that is. A Plea to the Rocks, which I've heard some people theorize that might be where we see the dwarf Disa, where she's like singing with a group of dwarves. I think that was in the Comic-Con trailer. This Wandering Day, which I think is might be like, because there was vocals in one of the trailers recently.
Yes, there was. Yep.
Yeah. Scherzo for Violin and Swords, Sailing into the Dawn for the Southlands, Cavalry, Water and Flame, which Water and Flame made me think of Gandalf and
and the Balrog
and the Balrog. Yeah.
Huh.
I just saw the dad joke. I have heard that dad joke before, Nerd Cookies, but I appreciate you bringing it up again. What proves God's a fan of baseball? He starts the Bible with "in the big inning." Yes.
Also, shout out to Stefan. He said that the Valaquenta actually starts with "in the beginning," which is true.
Ah, okay. So you were in the right territory.
Yeah.
In the Mines, the Veil of Smoke, the Mystics, which that one's interesting. I wonder what the Mystics means.
It reminds me of the woman or robed in white, or
yes,
the person robed in white. Yeah.
And Perilous Whisperings, the Broken Line, which kind of made me think of, I mean, obviously this is Third Age stuff, so it's not applicable here, but it makes you think of, you know, that line was broken. You know, the line of Isildur. Wise One, True Creation requires sacrifice, which is an interesting
that is interesting
phrase. And then Where the Shadows Lie, which I love because obviously that's a reference to Mordor. Yes.
Yeah, we definitely have Sauron conquering Mordor in this season, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So bad news for the Southlanders, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bad news, guys.
Do you think so Isildur has a sister in the show. Do you think we'll see Anarion at all, or do you think this sister will become?
So I was actually, another thing I was just watching. Another thing I was just watching was they did like a little Q&A at the Mumbai, I believe it was, premiere, and they were interviewing, I believe her name is Emma Horvath. Is that right? Who plays Isildur's sister, and she actually referenced the fact that she's the youngest, that Isildur's the oldest, then Anarion, then her.
Yes.
So she did reference Anarion. So I think we are pretty hard confirmed that Anarion will play a part in the show. That's one that's rumored to be off screen for season 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And Keaton says, I think Lloyd Owen mentioned it as well. I think you're right. Yeah. So,
yes. I love that brotherhood, the brothership.
Oh, maybe.
So
Katie says thought she was the middle child. I don't know. There's that does play a role, you know, middle children. That's a thing. As a father, I can tell you, middle children, there's something there.
Something else, yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see which one is the middle child.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Anarion, Celeborn, Círdan. So I guess we will have some casting news for season 2.
Yeah.
But
awesome. Great.
All right.
That's
well, yeah, I think we've covered enough for today. There was a lot from this past week, and really from like the past 8 hours alone.
Yeah.
So yeah, this has been a nice long stream covering a lot of stuff here. So Yoystan, thanks so much for joining me, man. It's always a pleasure to chat and talk through all kinds of Tolkien nerdiness with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Matt. Nerd the Rings community. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's always a pleasure. I'm going through grad school right now, so my time is very up in the air and crazy right now. But definitely love to live stream with you when I get the chance to. So thanks again.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll have to play LOTR again sometime. We had
Absolutely.
that one stream where we played LOTR was great. So we'll have to do that again sometime.
For sure.
For sure. All right, guys. Well, be sure to, before you leave, hit that like button if you haven't already, and subscribe to both me here at Nerd of the Rings and Yoystan. And also, if one of my mods could drop it in the chat, that would be great. I'm going to have a live stream watch party for the premiere of Rings of Power, which will be, gosh, what is it, like 2 weeks away? Something like that?
2 weeks from today, I think.
2 weeks from today.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've already got it scheduled. We're going to all queue it up together. So everyone will queue it up. We'll have a running timer so that everyone knows where we're at. And we'll get 2 hours, presumably.
Nice.
2 episodes, presumably 2 hours long, of New Middle Earth. And this show that we've been talking about for like 5 years, we'll finally get to judge it as an actual show that's actually released.
Finally.
And all the, hypothesizing and theorizing I guess it'll continue. It'll just be based on some actual episodes and not just, rumors and teasers and stuff like that. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you here next time on Nerd of the Rings.